think about food rules. Most of us have some personal ones. Maybe you're vegetarian, avoiding gluten, cutting carbs, or just trying to eat less junk food. But for hundreds of millions of people around the world, dietary choices are not just a matter of health or preference. They are a matter of deep religious obligation, a core part of their identity, dictated by ancient laws they believe come directly from God. I'm talking about kosher laws in Judaism and halal laws in Islam. For many outsiders, these complex systems often get reduced to one simple and slightly baffling prohibition. No pork. Why can't Jews and Muslims eat bacon? It seems like an arbitrary, even strange, rule from a bygone era. Maybe it was about hygiene. Didn't pigs carry diseases back then? But what if I told you that the famous pork prohibition is just the tip of a massive iceberg? What if these intricate dietary systems are about far more than just avoiding certain meats? What if they are profound, multi-layered practices designed to shape identity, cultivate spiritual discipline, and even reflect a vision of cosmic order? And what if the popular hygiene theory is actually a modern myth that completely misses the point? Today, we're going beyond bacon. We'll explore the fascinating origins, the complex rules, and the surprising reasons behind Jewish kosher and Islamic halal. Why do these ancient laws persist so powerfully in the modern world? The answers reveal a deep insight into how religion shapes the most basic human activity, eating. Before we dive into the why, let's briefly understand the what. Kosher from the Hebrew kasher, meaning fit or proper, and halal from the Arabic allow, meaning permissible or lawful, are the dietary laws rooted in the sacred texts of Judaism, the Torah, primarily Leviticus and Deuteronomy, and Islam, the Quran and the Hadith, sayings and practices of Prophet Muhammad. While developed in different contexts, they share significant similarities due to their common Abrahamic heritage, but also have key differences. Key features often include 1. Permitted and forbidden animals. Both systems have lists of animals that are permissible to eat and those that are forbidden. Kosher famously allows land animals that both chew their cud and have cloven hooves, like cows, sheep, goats. Animals that have only one of these traits, like pigs, cloven hooves, but no hooves, or camels, cud chewing, but no cloven hooves, are forbidden. For seafood, only fish with both fins and scales are permitted, so shellfish, like shrimp and lobster, are out. Specific birds are listed as forbidden. Halal generally has broader categories. Most land animals are permissible unless specifically forbidden. The most famous prohibition is pork. Carnivorous animals, birds of prey, and land animals without external ears are typically forbidden. Most seafood is generally considered halal. 1. Ritual slaughter. Both systems require that permitted animals, mammals and birds be slaughtered in a specific, ritual manner to be considered lawful, or kosher. Slaughter shashita must be performed by a trained Jewish slaughterer shoshay, using an incredibly sharp, perfectly smooth blade to make a rapid, deep incision across the neck, severing major arteries, veins, and the trachea esophagus. This is intended to cause instantaneous loss of consciousness and minimal pain, and to allow for maximum blood drainage. Blood is strictly forbidden in kosher law. Meat must also be salted kashering to draw out remaining blood. Halal, slaughter, dobi, is similar, requiring a swift, deep incision with a sharp knife to the neck, cutting the jugular veins and carotid arteries while the animal is alive. Crucially, the name of God, Allah, must be invoked Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, at the moment of slaughter. Draining the blood is also essential, as blood is forbidden in Islam too. There's debate within Islam about whether meat slaughtered by Jews or Christians, people of the book, can also be considered halal under certain conditions. 3. Prohibition of blood. Both explicitly forbid the consumption of blood. Leviticus 17, Quran 5-3. 4. Prohibition of intoxicants. Islam. Halal rules extend beyond food to include a strict prohibition of alcohol and other intoxicants, which are seen as clouding the mind and hindering remembrance of God. Kosher laws do permit alcohol, like kosher wine. 5. Separation of meat and dairy. Judaism. Unique to kosher is the strict prohibition against mixing meat, including poultry and dairy products, in the same meal, based on the biblical injunction, "You shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk." Exodus 23:19. This extends to requiring separate utensils, dishes, and even sinks for meat and dairy in observant households. Halal does not have this restriction. This is just a brief overview. The details can be incredibly complex, governed by centuries of rabbinic and Islamic legal interpretation, but it gives us a sense of the scope. These are comprehensive systems touching every aspect of food production and consumption. So why? The most common explanation you'll hear, especially from secular observers, is the hygiene hypothesis. This idea became popular in the 19th century with the rise of germ theory. The argument was simple. Ancient people didn't understand microbes, but God, in His wisdom, gave them these dietary laws as a form of primitive public health regulation. Pork, the reasoning went, was notoriously prone to carrying trichinosis, a dangerous parasitic disease, especially in warm climates if not cooked properly. Shellfish could easily become contaminated and cause food poisoning. Therefore, God simply forbade these dangerous foods to protect His people. It sounds logical, right? Case closed. Well, not quite. While this theory seems plausible for some prohibitions, most modern scholars, including anthropologists, historians of religion, and even many religious thinkers, find it inadequate as the primary or sole explanation for kosher and halal. Here's why. 1. Doesn't explain everything. While hygiene might explain pork or shellfish, it utterly fails to explain many other core rules. Why forbid camels or rabbits? Why the specific rules about cloven hooves and chewing cud? Why the absolute prohibition of blood, which many cultures consume safely? Why the strict separation of meat and dairy in kosher? These rules have no obvious connection to hygiene. 2. Ignores religious context. The texts themselves never mention hygiene or health as the reason. The stated reasons are overwhelmingly theological. These laws are given by God as a command, as a way to be holy, to be separate, to mark the covenant relationship. Reducing them purely to health ignores the explicit religious framework. 3. Anachronistic. Applying modern germ theory to ancient texts can be misleading. While some practices might have had secondary health benefits, assuming this was the conscious primary motivation is often reading our modern concerns back into the past. Ancient peoples had their own sophisticated understandings of purity, contamination, and the sacred, which didn't necessarily map onto modern notions of hygiene. 4. Undermines religious significance. For believers, explaining these laws purely through hygiene can feel dismissive, stripping them of their deeper spiritual meaning and reducing divine commands to mere practical advice that is now outdated by modern refrigeration and cooking methods. So, while avoiding diseased pork might have been a welcome side effect, the hygiene theory just doesn't cut it as the main explanation. We need to look deeper into the realms of sociology, spirituality, and symbolism. One of the most powerful functions of distinctive dietary laws is their ability to create and maintain group identity and social boundaries. Think about it. Food is inherently social. We eat together. Sharing a meal is a fundamental way humans bond, build community, and express shared values. Conversely, having strict rules about what you can eat, how it must be prepared, and who you can comfortably eat with, creates a clear line between us and them. For both Judaism and Islam, which originated as minority groups, often living within larger, dominant, and sometimes hostile cultures, Jews in diaspora, early Muslims in Mecca, these dietary laws became crucial tools for preserving identity and preventing assimilation. If you can only eat meat slaughtered in a specific way by a member of your own community, you are less likely to socialize intimately or intermarry with outsiders. If you cannot share certain foods like pork or non-halal meat at a communal table, it constantly reminds both you and your neighbors of your distinct religious commitment. Passing these complex rules down through generations becomes a core part of cultural transmission, reinforcing the group's heritage and shared obligations. The laws function as a daily, tangible, edible reminder of who you are and who you belong to. They build a fence around the community, not necessarily out of hostility, but as a way to maintain their unique covenant relationship with God in a world perceived as impure or idolatrous. This sociological function of boundary maintenance is undeniably a powerful factor in the persistence of kosher and halal beyond social identity. Many theologians and practitioners emphasize the profound spiritual discipline cultivated by following these laws. In a world that constantly tempts us towards mindless consumption and instant gratification, kosher and halal demand consciousness and intention around the most basic human act, eating. You cannot simply grab any food off the shelf or walk into any restaurant. You must pause. You must inquire. You must be mindful of the source of your food, its preparation, and the rules governing its consumption. This constant awareness serves several spiritual purposes. Self-discipline, following complex rules, even when inconvenient, builds character, self-control, and obedience to God's will. It's a training ground for resisting other temptations. Remembrance of God Dikka. Every meal becomes an opportunity to remember God, His commandments, and His blessings. The invocation of God's name during halal slaughter, or the blessings said before and after meals in both traditions, turn eating from a purely biological act into a devotional one. Sanctification of the mundane. These laws elevate the ordinary act of eating into the realm of the sacred. By submitting even this basic appetite to divine guidance, the believer seeks to make their entire life holy, set apart for God. The Hebrew concept of kashrut fitness implies not just physical suitability, but spiritual propriety. The Arabic halal, permissible, is contrasted with haram, forbidden, framing dietary choices within a larger moral and spiritual order. Eating becomes an act of worship, gratitude, and respect for life. The specific rules around slaughter, particularly the emphasis on a sharp knife, minimizing pain and draining blood, can be interpreted as fostering a deeper respect for the animal life being taken. From this perspective, the specific content of the laws, why this animal and not that one, might be less important than the practice of adherence itself, which cultivates a life of constant spiritual awareness and submission to God. Perhaps the most intellectually fascinating, though also most speculative, explanations delve into the potential symbolic meanings embedded within the laws themselves, particularly the seemingly strange animal classifications in Leviticus. The renowned British anthropologist Mary Douglas, in her highly influential book Purity and Danger, 1966, offered a groundbreaking structuralist interpretation of the kosher laws. She argued that the dietary rules were not arbitrary, nor primarily about hygiene or even just identity politics. Instead, she proposed they were part of a larger symbolic system designed to express and uphold a particular Israelite vision of cosmic order and holiness. Douglas noted that the clean land animals were those that perfectly fit the category of what a proper domesticated herd animal should be. They chew the cud, a sign of peaceful herbivory, and they have completely cloven hooves, suitable for the settled agricultural landscape. Holiness, in this view, means wholeness, completeness, and conformity to the proper category. Animals that violated these categories were deemed unclean or abominations, precisely because they were ambiguous or hybrid. The pig, for example, has the cloven hoof like a cow, but doesn't chew the cud like a cow. It blurs the lines. It's category-defying, therefore it's unclean. The camel chews the cud like a sheep, but doesn't have a truly cloven hoof. It's ambiguous, unclean. Similarly, seafood is deemed clean only if it perfectly fits the category of fish, having both fins and scales. Creatures that live in the water but lack these defining features like shrimp, crabs, eels, catfish, are outside the proper category, unclean. Birds of prey are forbidden, perhaps because they consume blood, violating a fundamental cosmic boundary. From Douglas's perspective, the dietary laws were a way for the ancient Israelites to enact their theology symbolically in their daily lives. By eating only animals that represented wholeness and perfection within God's created order, they were embodying and reinforcing the ideal of holiness, which also means separation or set-apartness in their own community. They were imposing a mental map of divine order onto the messy reality of the natural world. While Douglas's theory specifically addressed kosher, similar symbolic interpretations could potentially apply to some halal categories, reflecting an Islamic worldview of order, purity, and submission to God's design. So, the reasons behind kosher and halal are far richer and more complex than just avoiding diseased pork. They likely represent a convergence of multiple factors operating over centuries. Perhaps a minor, secondary role for practical concerns, though not full hygiene. A powerful sociological function of building identity and maintaining community boundaries. A profound spiritual function of cultivating discipline, mindfulness, and sanctifying daily life. And possibly a deep symbolic function reflecting a theological vision of cosmic order and holiness. The persistence of these ancient dietary laws in our modern, globalized, and often secular world is a testament to their enduring power. They continue to shape the lives, identities, and communities of millions. And this brings us to the final debate. In a world with modern food science, globalized cultures, and diverse interpretations of faith, what is the primary meaning and relevance of these laws today? Are kosher and halal still vital as powerful tools for maintaining distinct religious and cultural identity in a pluralistic world, serving that crucial sociological function? Are they primarily valuable for the spiritual discipline and mindfulness they cultivate, regardless of whether the original, symbolic or hygienic reasons still apply? Is the practice itself the point? Or are they largely symbolic relics of a bygone era? Important markers of tradition and heritage, certainly, but perhaps disconnected from their original, complex theological or anthropological rationales, which may seem obscure or less relevant to many modern believers. What gives these ancient food laws their enduring power in the 21st century? Let me know your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the hidden meanings behind kosher and halal fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the rich tapestry of religious beliefs and practices. Thanks for watching.